They may have to keep talking about it for a while because Shanahan was also asked yesterday whether or not Lance will be on the team week 1 despite being number 3 on the depth chart. Here's what he had to say.
I'm really hoping so. I mean, this isn't a thing that we're giving up on Trey. This is more of how Brock played in his 7 games, and that was decided before this season started. And then how good Sam's looked. They both looked good. But we do have to make a decision here, and you only get so many reps at it, and we feel starting about 10 days ago, Sam really separated himself, and we got to keep it real in that way. But I feel very, very fortunate to have both of them here. I really hope when it's said and done that all 3 of these guys are here, and you never know when that's going to come up. We needed 4 guys last year. Doesn't happen much, but if we can have Trey as an option here, I would feel extremely happy about that. I think the other quarterbacks in our room would, and I think our team would. Trey's a very well-liked guy, one of the better people I've been around, and I do think he's going to have a lot of success in this league. It's been a tough road for him because the times he has gotten an opportunity, he ended up getting hurt and missed that window, and now he's in this position, and we'll always try to do right for Trey. If there's a better situation that his heart's in and something like that, we're going to make sure not to do something that hurts him in that way. So that's stuff that I talked to him about this morning. That's stuff I'll talk to him about tonight and continue to talk to him about. But Trey knows how I feel about him, and I hope he ends up being able to be here, and that's the best thing for him. But we got to see what is the best thing from now until then.
There are some parallels to Zach Wilson, who was taken 1 spot before Trey Lance back in the 2021 draft. Zach Wilson content to stick around, even though he had been supplanted by Aaron Rodgers. And even though it felt like the Jets were done with him, at the end of the day, he realized the best thing for him is to stay there. It feels like now the ball is in Trey Lance's court. Does he believe it's the best for him to stay there? And the problem is, it's coming to a head.
Yeah, fairly quick here.
The start of the season.
Yeah.
So from Lance's perspective, what's better for him?
Yeah, it's a good question.
To just stick around through the end of the season or uproot his life and go join a depth chart where he doesn't know anybody, where he doesn't know where he fits. He may be number 3 on another team.
Exactly.
What's he going to do? Go in and be okay, I could be number 3 where I know everybody, and maybe I'll play this year because they used 4 guys last year.
Right.
Or I can just go be a stranger in a strange team with a strange locker room and a strange playbook and a new apartment and a new life and a new everything, and I'm still number 3. Why do I want to do that? I'll just do it after this year. Now, the only benefit would be if he sees the opportunity in 2024. And this is why Minnesota makes the most sense. Remember, I had heard at the Combine there was talk of Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance, and obviously there would have been more from the 49ers to the Vikings. It's not going to be a straight-up Dan Pastorini, Ken Stabler trade. But Trey Lance could go to Minnesota and be number 3, and he's not far from North Dakota, where he went to college, and I think he grew up in that area. You go back home, sort of, or he may even be from Minnesota for all I know.
I think he's from Minnesota. I'm pretty sure he's from Minnesota.
So you go back home, and you sit and learn for a year. And then next year, they got nobody. Kirk Cousins is walking away in free agency after this season, most likely. So that may be the best play. That may be the only play for Trey Lance. And they had those conversations earlier this year about Lance for Cousins as a flip-flop. As part of a deal that would be more than a flip-flop.
Yeah, no, this is the next part, the interesting part of the conversation here. It can go a lot of different ways. It can. All right, so first off is, where is Trey Lance at in this conversation? I think you brought it out, or you said it correctly, right? Do you really want to go somewhere right now, starting over new, trying to learn a new offense, and probably still be the number 3 guy, and then you can't put your best foot forward as your first impression to really show, what you could possibly be? Hey, I know we all think, hey, a fresh new look and a new spot would be good for him, but I'm not sure it'd be good for him right now, right this second, right? And you said it right. You get to be the 3rd string on a team that has been, cursed by the quarterback injury bug. Brock Purdy was hurt last year. Sam Darnold's been banged up a few times in his career too. And if you do get in, you're around one of the best rosters and teams in football, and a guy that knows you and you know the system. And that's where I would, if I was advising Trey Lance, I'd go, hey, man, I know this ain't easy. I know it's not. But just hang in there. I think this is still the best spot for you to grow, at least for the short term here, and then you reevaluate after the season. And yeah, you probably move on unless you get to play and blow people out of the water. But, I think that would be the best route. The other route, of course, is like, hey, I just think I need a new fresh start and all that. Sure, that could be good for him mentally, but I don't know if it'll be best for him football-wise. And my other 2 cents on that would be, is anyone really going to trade for Trey Lance right now? And really? I mean, he's a social media, everybody looks at him and does that. He hasn't played in 3 years, just like Shanahan talked about. The 49ers don't even think he's a first or a second string quarterback at this moment, right? That's where, and I think they still owe him a little money from his rookie contract that's still guaranteed. So I look at all those and go, I don't know if anybody would trade for him anyways. And I think the 49ers, if he did get in and play, they want it to work. And like we said, they could go, hey, look, he's pretty good. Look, it kind of justifies that move we make. So that's where I think he should stay with the Niners.
And here's where I believe that to the extent that Kyle Shanahan is professing some degree of altruism and, they want to work with Trey, whatever, they knew back in May that he was going to be number 3. They knew he was going to be number 3.
Most
the time
likely
to get the fresh start is in May.
Right.
The time to get the fresh start is then. It's too late now.
Exactly.
It all happens now.
Yeah.
2 weeks before the start of the season. What's he going to say? They know him well. He's going to say, I'll just stay here. If I'm going to be number 3 somewhere else, I'll be number 3 here. And here's why someone could trade for him. His salary this year is $940,000. He's received the bulk of his pay via a roster bonus, training camp roster bonus of $2.5 million.
Gotcha.
Next year he's on the books for like $5.5 million, and it's fully guaranteed. But for a backup quarterback, $5.5 million isn't a whole lot of money. And if you think you got a shot at a franchise guy who just hasn't had a chance to play, and you get him in a system where you support him and you embrace him and he's your guy, that's the other side of this too. We don't know who's out there that is thinking, oh, wait, I got another shot at Trey Lance. I wanted him in 2021, and I still want him now, and I got a shot at him. We don't know who's out there thinking that because it's not something they're going to wear around on a T-shirt.
Right.
So,
but what are you going to do, Mike? What are you going to do, Mike? You're gonna go out there on a limb and trade and give away a 5th-round pick for Trey Lance, and he might be your 3rd-string quarterback, and you're going to pay him a guaranteed almost $6 million? I mean, we know how these teams work. I just don't imagine that happening for a team where it could be like, again, egg on your face, and you go in the fan base going, we gave $6 million to a 3rd-string quarterback, and then and the 5th-round pick 194, they used it, and look at the player they got now, and look at him. And that's where I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it will right now.
He is from Marshall, Minnesota, 2 hours and 43 minutes to the southwest of Minneapolis. So, look, that one makes the most sense.
Yeah,
I've been looking at him as a guy who's a potential backup for Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes, a guy with the mobility who could run the offense.
I hear you.
If those guys get hurt.
Right.
And you need somebody who can come in and win a couple of games. If the starter gets hurt, it happens from time to time, and the season can go off the rails if you don't have a competent backup. But is the investment worth it when you got him for 2 years? That's it. You get to exercise or not the 4th-year option after this season. No one's picking up the 4th-year option or 5th-year option, on Trey Lance. Yeah, so you got him for 2 years. Is it enough? I could see drafting a guy who falls to you and making him your backup, and he's got similar skill set to the starter, and you keep him around for 4 years. Maybe you flip him after 3 years like Andy Reid used to do. He'd flip quarterbacks, and they'd get to their team and like, this guy sucks. Well, Andy Reid is the reason why we thought he was good. So it all makes sense if you got 4 years. You only got 2 years. Minnesota makes the most sense. As get him in, let him be 3rd or 2nd. I mean, Nick Mullins. Let him be 2nd on the depth chart behind Kirk Cousins. Cousins doesn't care. Cousins isn't going to freak out about it. Cousins knows which way
Yeah,
the wind's blowing
exactly
in Minnesota.
right.
And then you got a guy who competes to be your starter next year with whoever you would draft or somebody else you would sign. But you got a potential starter for $5.5 million in 2024. And if it works out, you keep him around.
I hear you. I just be interested to. I hear the logic. I do. Yeah, Minnesota, of course, they got a GM there that came from the 49ers, right? So he's going to have a good feel for Trey Lance, right? We heard the Atlanta Falcons. There was a lot of people that thought they were hot on Trey Lance at pick 4 when he came out in the draft. And to your point, he would make sense behind a Desmond Ridder, right? It'd be a similar, hey, he can move a little bit. We just want him to hand the ball off and make a few throws here and there. That would make sense. Rand Carthon, the GM of the Tennessee Titans, when he signed with the Tennessee Titans, right? That was when Trey Lance put out the tweet of like fingers crossed emojis, right? I guess maybe trying to imply, hey, come get me, come save me, whatever. I don't know. But those are 3 you look at. But, Tennessee, of course, has 3 quarterbacks right now, so they're not going to make that move, I don't think. Atlanta, Minnesota, maybe. I got to see it to believe it. I think there's too much negative perception, not a natural feel. They've scrimmaged against certain teams. They're going to hear from those teams that, damn, it didn't look that great when he was out there against us. They're going to turn on preseason film. And just like some of the clips that are circulating on social media last week, they're going to go, he made some good throws, but he makes some plays where you go, this is like basic NFL first day of class type stuff here, and we still didn't make the right read or see it right. And that's where I think it's at the end of the day, I just don't think there's going to be a market for him. I don't see that happening.
And look, as I said earlier, it all comes down, I think, to what Trey Lance wants to do, what he decides to do. And there are indications that he's not real happy with this outcome when he's told yesterday by Kyle Shanahan that he's going to be third string.
Yep.
And Shanahan decides based upon his reaction to send him home for the day. I think that's significant. Let's hear Kyle Shanahan explaining the decision to not have Trey Lance present at practice on the day Lance found out he had been demoted to number 3.
Trey's put his heart and soul into this like a lot of players, like almost all players do. And these are conversations I have to have with guys a lot, and they're never easy. They're really tough. But it's also always tough when the spotlight's on it as much as it is with this situation with it being Trey, with our quarterback, his pick in the draft. So I knew that was hard on him. We had such a light practice today, and, watching how Trey was and when we talked, we just thought it was better, hey, take the day off, get away a little bit, clear your head some, and we'll talk later in the afternoon, and we'll get you back in here tomorrow. And especially the practice we had today was our shortest one of the year. First time we didn't do pads. Just felt it was the best thing for him.
Look, this gets back to this question of why it took so long for them to come to this conclusion, and I'm curious about what he was told every step of the way. They signed Sam Darnold. Does he call up Kyle or John Lynch or somebody and say, what's this mean for me? You brought in Sam Darnold. What's that mean? Don't worry about it. You're still our guy. Is that what they said? Right? And as Lance, Lance is in position to see the same stuff the rest of us see when they start praising Sam Darnold and talking about his arm talent. And last month, Kyle Shanahan compared him to Steve Young without comparing him to Steve Young. What messages were sent to Lance if Lance at any point inquired as to where do I stand? Was it news to him yesterday? Was he led to believe he's going to be number 2? And for the first time in months was told otherwise? However he reacted, it caused Kyle Shanahan to think the best thing to do is send him home for the day. That tells me, Chris, we got to watch and see after he sleeps on it, after he processes it, how's he going to feel about this? Does he feel like he's been lied to? Does he feel like he's been misled? Does that make him more inclined to say, I want out, and I don't want you all to be trying to justify what you gave up to get me and demanding too much. I want you to basically give me away for a ham sandwich to whichever team I want to go play for.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm interested to see how that plays out too, and what Trey Lance finally decides here. I do think Shanahan will try to do right by him no matter what. I do, and Shanahan. Here would be my 2 cents. You've heard me say this before, and this is my experience with him as a human, and of course following him closely as he's been a head coach. He is not a BSer. That's not who he is. He's very honest with his players, right? We've talked about that before. he's not going to be one to mislead or do any of that or BS and get caught in some lie. So I would be shocked if, he wasn't extremely upfront. He was upfront with Jimmy G when he was like, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback. We're just letting you know. We're drafting a quarterback high. We've got pick 12. So I don't think that he's not afraid of confrontation. Anybody that's worked with Shanahan or anybody knows that. 4-letter words fly out of his mouth. He tells coaches like it is. That's what it is. So I would be surprised, let alone, hey, Sam Darnold was the second-string quarterback in this last preseason game, right? Let alone, right? We hear the reports of practice. People are seeing that. You're not hearing the 49ers locker room or players go, man, it's shocking Trey Lance isn't the backup. They've been seeing it. They know who's been whooping ass at practice on a daily basis. So that's where I don't think it's a shock for any of them. But, ultimately, I do really believe Shanahan and that he wants Trey Lance to be there as the number 3 guy. I do. But I think he'll do right by Trey Lance. And if Trey Lance came in today and said, hey, I want to be traded and do all that, I think Shanahan and John Lynch would do their best to try to appease him and make that happen.
Well, let's see,
Yeah.
because it's uncharacteristic for the 49ers or any team to just give a guy away because the guy asked nicely or because the guy feels like he's had the short end of the stick and they want to do right by him and they want to place him with a team where he can reach the potential he never reached with them and make them look bad in the process.
No,
We'll
you're
see
right. You're right.
49ers do.
I think something you brought up early in the show, they got 4 quarterbacks, and they got another quarterback that I think they probably think could be the third stringer too, so that makes it a little easier as well. If it was just those 3, I'm with you. They might drive a little bit of a hard bargain. But since there's 4 there that I think are liked and respected, then that makes it a little easier to go, hey, it's been a screwed up situation. We're partly part of the problem of why this situation's messed up. And, of course, the expectations were through the roof. That's the other thing that maybe was not taken into account. You're a Super Bowl caliber team and you draft a quarterback like that. Everybody expects it to be big time and, well, he should win every game and be awesome. And, I think it's all been a very tough situation there for Trey Lance and the 49ers.
All the more reason why they shouldn't have traded up. They shouldn't have done it. Sit at 12, take a guy later, do something else, come up with another plan. If Jimmy Garoppolo is your guy for 2021, just ride with him and get somebody else somewhere else somehow. Don't make that big move. It creates expectations you're never going to fulfill. And you mentioned the 4th quarterback. Brandon Allen is the guy to watch. Shanahan told Michael Silver back in late July he might carry 4 guys on the roster, something that hasn't happened in a long time. Washington did it at one point where Pat White was one of the 4 guys they kept around when the Shanahans were there. And then when Kyle was asked about it at a press conference a day or 2 later, he was like, I don't know about that. I got a month to worry about that. So I think maybe, just maybe, he's realizing it's Purdy, it's Darnold, it's Allen, and Lance gets shipped off somewhere else and everybody moves on, just like Jimmy G moved on. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.